President Biden has announced his intent to lift Cuba's designation as a state sponsor of terrorism, a significant move aimed at improving relations and facilitating the release of political prisoners. This decision, influenced by the Catholic Church, could see many dozens of unjustly detained individuals freed by January 20th. Alongside this, the U.S. plans to ease economic pressures and roll back some of the tougher measures imposed by the previous administration. The Cuban government has also committed to releasing 553 prisoners, although they haven't linked this to the U.S. decision. As Biden's administration navigates these changes, the future of U.S.-Cuba relations hangs in the balance, especially with the incoming administration signaling a potential shift back to stricter policies. The stakes are high for the Cuban people, and the world is watching closely. Biden moves to lift Cuba's state sponsor of terrorism designation. U.S. President Joe Biden notified Congress of his intent to lift the U.S. designation of Cuba as a state sponsor of terrorism, the White House announced, as part of a deal facilitated by the Catholic Church to free political prisoners on the island. Senior U.S. administration officials, who previewed the announcement on the condition of anonymity, said many dozens of political prisoners and others considered by the U.S. to be unjustly detained would be released by the end of the Biden administration at noon on January 20th. The U.S. would also ease some economic pressure on Cuba, as well as a 2017 memorandum issued by then-President Donald Trump toughening U.S. posture toward Cuba. In taking these steps to bolster the ongoing dialogue between the government of Cuba and the Catholic Church, President Biden is also honoring the wisdom and counsel that has been provided to him by many world leaders, especially in Latin America, who have encouraged him to take these actions on how best to advance the human rights of the Cuban people, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said in a statement. The Cuban Foreign Ministry on Tuesday said that the government informed Pope Francis it will release 553 people who had been convicted of different crimes. It said that they will be gradually released, as the authorities analyze the legal and humanitarian ways to make it happen. The Foreign Ministry didn't link the release of the prisoners to the U.S. decision of lifting the designation as a state sponsor of terrorism, but in the spirit of the ordinary jubilee of the year 2025 declared by His Holiness. The Cuban authorities didn't say who is among the 553 people who will be released. The determination by the outgoing one-term Democrat is likely to be reversed as early as next week after Trump, the Republican who is now president-elect, takes office and Secretary of State designate Marco Rubio assumes the position of America's top diplomat. Rubio, whose family left Cuba in the 1950s before the communist revolution that brought Fidel Castro to power, has long been a proponent of sanctions on the communist island. Rubio will appear before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on Wednesday for his confirmation hearing and is expected to address his Cuban roots in his testimony. Hit the like button and subscribe to channel for latest news and events. Brought to you by DKFON.com Free ADS.